Today, I'm gonna do something a little bit different from the norm. As you can tell by the title of this video, I'm going to be talking about the classic Charles Dickens novel, A Christmas Carol. But rather than talk about the various film adaptations of the beloved classic, I'm going to discuss the inner machinations of the tale. From how the numerous characters have been portrayed, to what the message of the story means, I'm going to have a retrospective ramble about A Christmas Carol. And keep in mind, most of what I'm going to say is just pure conjecture and opinion. With that, let's begin. For those of you who have not heard this timeless tale, first of all, happy 5th birthday, Junior! Secondly, the story is about a crotchety old Englishman by the name of Ebenezer Scrooge, a moneylender who makes everyone in his London neighborhood miserable by forcing them to pay ludicrous debts for his subpar services. Christmas Eve is no exception, as his foul attitude reaches the height of its terribleness every year on this day. He sneers at the poor, forces his clients to pay up or he'll increase their debts, and he even turns away 2 men who are collecting money for the poor and hungry, saying that if they'll die, they better do it quick and decrease the surplus population. He even considers keeping his overworked, underpaid underling, Bob Cratchit, in his office on Christmas Day, but eventually relents much to his own agitation. That night, as Scrooge slinks back to his own horrid home, he is visited by the ghost of his former business partner, Jacob Marley, who is wrapped in heavy chains and self-pity. The Phantom warns Scrooge that he shall be visited by 3 spirits, who will try to make Scrooge change his ways, lest he suffer a fate worse than Marley's. Scrooge at first scoffs at the very idea of spirits, but Marley's words eventually resonate within the old man, and he waits with apprehension for the clock to toll 1 o'clock, as that is the sign that the first spirit will arrive. From there, the spirits show Scrooge the mistakes of his past, how they affect the present, and the fate that shall await Scrooge should he continue on his current path of selfishness and shrewdness. As he sees the love he has lost, the lives he has ruined, and his ultimate fate of dying an unloved man whom everyone relishes in besmirching, Ebenezer declares that he shall begin anew, and use whatever time he has left to change for the better. He immediately begins on Christmas morning by erasing all of the debts the people of the town owe him, buying presents for children, giving money to the same fundraiser he ignored the evening prior, and even going out of his way to not only double Bob Cratchit's pay, but also find the best doctor possible for his ill son, Tiny Tim. On the surface, A Christmas Carol is a pretty decent story with a very obvious moral. Don't waste your life simultaneously being miserable and also spreading said misery. Especially on Christmas, the one day of the year where everyone can be a little bit happier than on other days. But beyond the surface, there's actually a series of lessons to be learned. So, rather than go out of my way to compare the numerous versions of A Christmas Carol that have been released over the years, I'm going to ramble about why this story is so great and why it has so many renditions in the first place. First of all, let's take a look at the character of Ebenezer Scrooge. He is a fantastic character for numerous reasons, the first of which being that he isn't just some villain in a children's story. Ebenezer is more diverse than the story first lets on, and the story itself gives the reader, or viewer, time to understand why he's so vile to everyone around him. He was once a lonely young boy supposedly hated by his father, according to the introduction added in 2003 by Richard Michael Kelly. He fell in love with the daughter of his first employer, only to have her break off their relationship due to his obsession with money, and move on to be married with 3 children. You see that Scrooge is miserable for a reason, as previous memories he'd rather ignore bubble up to the surface around this time of year. And he distracts himself by inflicting misery upon others, as if to show them the same kind of pain he himself endured can still happen on a lovely holiday like Christmas. It's only by confronting these memories and the effects they have not only on Scrooge's life, but everyone else's, that the old man finally realizes how wrong he has been. Speaking of said memories, let's talk more about those. We've all done something we regret that has always been stuck in our heads. Whether they be tiny mistakes or explosive fights, we've all done things we would rather forget. But our memories, much like the ghost of Christmas past, has a habit of coming back and reminding us of our mistakes. As much as we would rather forget them and say, what's done is done, we can only do that for so long. I personally have done many things I would want to take back, but, much like Scrooge, I can't. And those memories still haunt me to this day. The best advice I can give is probably the same advice Charles Dickens was trying to give to people like Scrooge. Confront your past. Until you face your past, these memories will always linger in the back of your mind, taunting you to no end. I'm not saying that once you stand up to them, they will go away forever, but when you accept that these things have happened to you, it becomes easier to dismiss them and move on to the present. Speaking of, how about the present? The ghost of Christmas Present comes to Scrooge with food, wine, and merriment, but at the same time shows Scrooge what he is missing, and also how his current reactions affect the less fortunate. The message here is that you shouldn't waste the time you have being alone and miserable. Scrooge made the conscious choice of living on his own with no family or friends, even going so far as to ignore his nephew's wedding and other social invitations. Not only that, but the way he treated Cratchit was so appalling that the poor man's wife was ready to give her husband's boss a piece of her mind, in spite of Bob's gratitude for the admittedly terrible work. Scrooge had been so busy separating himself from society while also spreading his pain like a virus that he didn't realize the magnitude his actions had upon the world around him. Being miserable doesn't make you happy. It only makes everyone around you just as miserable, if not more so. It's a personality trait that can follow you to the grave. Which reminds me. When the ghost of Christmas yet to come arrived, Scrooge immediately feared him more than the ghosts who came before. This spirit, silent and cloaked in black from head to toe, said not a word to Scrooge, and pointed the old man towards the future that awaited him. Scrooge saw that through his actions, he was not only responsible for everyone in the town practically celebrating his own death, but he was also responsible for the death of a sick child in need of expensive treatments. This shows us that age-old lesson that our actions, no matter how small, can lead to large outcomes. If you lead a life similar to Scrooge, you will not be missed when you die. Plain and simple. This leads to Scrooge's transformation when he wakes up on Christmas Day. The way he immediately springs to life and begins to plan his day around his newfound mantra shows that it is never too late for anyone to change. Even the most spiteful of human beings can change if given the proper motivation, and no motivation is better than the realization of how much power your actions have over not only everyone around you, but also your own reputation. This lesson can be applied in so many cases beyond the realm of A Christmas Carol. The best example I can think of being Megatron in the IDW comic book series Transformers More Than Meets the Eye, and its sequel series Lost Light. In this universe, after millions of years of warfare, Megatron has finally seen that his warmongering has done little good for his race, and has made himself a tyrant in the eyes of his fellow Cybertronians. Thus, he begins to make a new life for himself by wearing the badge of those he once called his foes. His genuine attempts to remake himself have made for an interesting character arc which coincides with Scrooge's character arc. An old man full of hatred for the world and its people sees the error of his ways through some powerful persuasion and vows to make himself a better being with the time he has left. And this concept doesn't just apply to the world of fiction, it can be seen in reality. Face it, we all know at least one person in our lives who is exactly like Scrooge in some way or another. Someone who can no longer see the joy in Christmas due to some event that has changed their perception of the holiday. Heck, maybe you yourself are that very person. In either case, I have the perfect advice for interacting with these people during the holidays. Give to them. It doesn't have to be something big, flashy, or expensive. It doesn't even need to be something physical. It can just be some simple display of affection. A simple hug or saying, "I care," can work wonders on a human being. To paraphrase the Doctor Who version of A Christmas Carol, yes, that exists. Christmas is a time when people turn to one another and embrace each other, as if to say, "Well done. Well done, everyone. We're nearly out of the dark." This is a time of year when everyone can show a little love and comfort to one another, even in the darkest of years. I'm not going to lie, these past few years have sucked for various reasons I won't get into. But even in these dark times, I still look forward to Christmas just to see that one shining light at the end of a long, dark tunnel. And it's stories like A Christmas Carol that help me get into that happy, mushy, feel-good mood. It's a story that shows even heartless misers like Scrooge can change if given the proper motivation, and can partake in the wonderful festivities this time of the year brings for each one of us. Yeah, maybe that sounds a bit optimistic if not naive of me, but I think it's a good lesson to take from A Christmas Carol, no matter what variation you see. Not bad for a story written in 6 weeks to make a quick buck. In either case, I hope that each and every one of you watching this video has a very Merry Christmas, if not a happy holiday, and I hope that the new year brings nothing but joy and happiness to each and every one of you. This has been Rambles and Mumbles of a Nerd, and I thank you very much for watching this episode.